Hello. Evan McMullin, who ran for president 2 years ago and is oft talked about as a candidate. Maybe he'll make an announcement right now.
Hello. Hi, thank you for that welcome. Thank you. I'll set down my water here. I may take a drink and then I'll get into all kinds of trouble for doing it. But thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you to the Des Moines Register for hosting me and giving me an opportunity to share a few comments with you, a few thoughts. I would say that I'm already sweating like a pig, but I just came from the hog house or the pig palace or whatever it is, and I saw some of the biggest hogs I've ever seen in my life, and they've all got their own fans, and then they're in the shade and they're not sweating at all, so I'm not sure that saying makes any sense anymore. But that's okay, we've got to save our bacon, so that's what's important. I support that. But it is an honor to be part of this tradition here in the Hawkeye State of civic engagement. It's a patriotic tradition that I'd love to see all over the country. I think we'd be even stronger for it. But until then, continue on with this. This is such a great culture of political engagement here. Many of you may not know who I am, and that's okay, I don't blame you. I was last here in August 2016, along with a lot of other people who were running for office at the same time. And unfortunately, I missed the fair, so I did some of the toughest last part of the campaign, but missed the best part. But here I am today, and at the time I was working as the chief policy director for the House Republicans, and I was concerned in the late summer that some of our fundamental ideals and values were under attack during the campaign. I was so concerned about that, and part of the reason why I was concerned about that was because before I was working in that capacity, I was with the Central Intelligence Agency in the clandestine service, and after 9/11 I went overseas and ran counterterrorism operations, and also worked against other adversaries of freedoms, foreign dictators and authoritarian regimes that deprived their own people of freedom and tried to undermine freedom elsewhere in the world. And I learned in that experience something very important. In fact, it's the most important thing I learned during my service, and that was just how fragile freedom is. And we live in a country where freedom's pretty strong, but even for us it's fragile. And I saw in countries where leaders come to power and they want to empower themselves, not the people. They want to enrich themselves and empower themselves at the expense of the people. And the first thing they do is they reject the fundamental ideals that, for example, our nation was founded upon, chiefly the fact that we are all created equal and that we are inherently free. Our founders believed that we were endowed by these rights by our Creator, but they also believed that they were self-evident. They believed they were obvious. And those ideals are important not only for us, but they're important, I believe, for others as well who seek freedom. And I saw that when leaders like this come to power, as they rise to power, some of their supporters start to reject those ideals as well. And I saw the countries go from being free or mostly free to a little bit less free, and then ultimately to being unfree. And it happens quicker than you'd think. And I was shocked by it, but it taught me that lesson about the fragility of freedom. And so when I was working there in Congress and saw our values under attack, our core values, I felt I had to stand up and do something about it. And so in the final 3 months of the campaign, I did the craziest thing you could imagine, and I launched a presidential campaign as an independent to stand up for these ideals. Not because I thought I had a good chance of winning. At the time, nobody knew who I was. I didn't have a good chance of winning, but I knew that it was time to start a fight for to recommit our country to our foundational values, because I believe they're the source of our prosperity and power. I'll tell you, I'm here today not to ask for your vote this time, but I am campaigning. I'm campaigning for these values at a time when I feel so concerned that we're living through a period of great disunion and division in our country, turning against each other. And I fear that our commitment to our values is loosening, and that's what's causing some of this division and some of the polarization that we see. And so, some of you actually may be aware of this, maybe some not, but tomorrow in our nation's capital, a group of white supremacists and neo-Nazis and others are going to be marching through our capital streets amid the memorials of our founding fathers and of our representative government. And they're going to be chanting slogans that we've heard originally from the Nazis, and that we heard from them last year in Charlottesville, Virginia, as I'm sure many of you saw them there with their torches and swastikas and whatnot. Now, I'm concerned by this, and some of my friends say, Evan, look, it's only a few hundred people, it's only 700 people, why do we need to worry about this? We're a nation of 325 people, and most of us aren't like that. And I agree, and thank goodness that it's not more of them. In fact, I hope it's less. But what I'm concerned about is that they seem to be gaining momentum. It's been a while since they've done a rally in DC or Charlottesville like they did. And I'm concerned that some of our young people are being attracted to their message. And I'm even more concerned that some of our leaders now are starting to say the same things they say. And some of our cable news commentators are doing the same thing. Just this last week, I heard a very popular cable news commentator talk about how our civilization and our culture and our country was under threat because our demographics are changing. What she meant to say was that because more people who don't look like me, who have skin with colored skin, are in our country because they're immigrants or maybe they're born here but they have colored skin, the demographics are changing and therefore our civilization is under threat. But that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Our civilization, our culture, our country was not based on the color of our skin. Rather, of course, we know, but it was defined by our values. And still today, our country is based on our values. We're defined by our values and our commitment to them. And so I was shocked to hear that from that cable host. But we're also hearing it from some of our leaders who say that, that when immigrants come to our country and have children, that it's a threat to our country, it's a threat to our civilization. That just isn't the case. I also hear from them, more so about immigrants, that, they want us to believe that immigrants that come from Africa or Latin America, that they're dirty, that they're rapists, or that they're violent criminals, and that they're contributing to a crime wave in our country. But I don't think the facts support that. In fact, according to the government's own facts, since in the last 40 years, immigration has increased. In fact, it's doubled. That's true. But what happened is that in that same time period, violent crime has decreased by over 50%. Those are the facts. And more so than that, our immigrants strengthen our military because they bring valuable skills and knowledge that we don't always have otherwise. And that's the same thing in our intelligence services. They also, many people don't know this, but 43% of our Fortune 500 companies, they're founded by immigrants or their children. And of the top 35 companies, it's 57% of them founded by immigrants or their children. But more than all of that, more than their contributions to the military or to business and jobs in this country, what they really bring, most of them, is a knowledge about how freedom can be lost and a deep and abiding love for freedom. And that's their most serious contribution to our country, is their commitment to freedom. It strengthens us all. Our founders, they had this radical idea. Their idea was that we are equal to those who lead us. Those who govern are no better than the governed. Those who rule are no better than those who rule, or those who are ruled. They believed that our government, therefore, was accountable to us, and they built an entire system of government on that. But they weren't perfect in that time. Some of them were slave owners, and that presented an inconsistency. And over time, we had to take more steps forward in our fight for equality, and we did. We realized that if some of us were better than others, if we considered some of us superior to others, that we couldn't then consider our government equal to us. And so we see in that fight, the fight of our founding fathers and Abraham Lincoln and Dr. Martin Luther King, we see that the fight for equality is also a fight for our liberty. We see that the fight for someone else's equality, more specifically, is also a fight for our own liberty. And that's my main message here today, folks, is that we need to take a strong stand in this moment in this country for the cause of liberty, because it is the cause of equality, because it is the same cause of liberty. We need to fight for these things. And you know, it's not a surprise for me that some of our leaders and some of our commentators on cable and television and whatnot, the same that attack equality in our country, that say that our culture is under threat by immigration and people of color, those are the same people who now attack the independence of our law enforcement, or the separation of powers, or the freedom of press. Those are the people who chant fake media, fake news, some of them. And so we see again that those who attack equality are also attacking liberty. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to call for a renewal of American politics. I'm here to call for a uniting around our fundamental values in the tradition of our forefathers and foremothers and all the Americans in 1776 who decided to risk their lives for those values. Those values that are at the core of our power and our prosperity. Serving overseas, I saw that other countries and peoples wanted to work with us. When we were attacked, they wanted to fight back with us. You know, when we fought against Al-Qaeda, it was Muslims who agreed or who respected the fact that we believed in freedom of religion and religious liberty and in all kinds of other inequality and all our other values. They fought with us, and we didn't have a single success without them. They want to trade with us because they trust us. They not only because our products are superior, but because they trust us. They trust us because we're committed to our values. And my fear is that if we don't remain committed to our values, we are going to turn against each other as our adversaries would like. The attack on our values, the attacks on our values, those are tools of our adversaries that seek to weaken us from within. They know that if our commitment to our values is loosened, our power will be diminished. And so I'm calling for a new age in American politics where we unite around our values. We're not going to agree on everything, and that's just fine. We need healthy debate in this country. That's the healthiest thing in the world. We want that to continue. But we've got to remain committed to our core values. That we can't sacrifice. So thank you very much for your time. Pleasure to be with you. God bless you.